Panel right now. Today I'm joined by Democratic strategist Nick Smith, Executive Director of Citizens Union Grace Rao back with me, Democratic strategist Tara Dowdell, and Republican strategist E. O'Brien Murray. So great to have all of you here on such a big night. We just heard, of course, Decision Desk HQ calling the race over in New Jersey for Mikey Sherrill. We're about 15 minutes from the polls closing in New York City. But I want to start with the sheer number of people that we're seeing that headed to the polls early, surpassing what we saw 4 years ago, surpassing what we've seen really going back to the 1980s. Nick, first, what does that say about the attention this race has gotten?
I think these numbers are just explosive, and they're really showing that, post the election of Donald Trump, I think voters are really trying to send a message really to him in some ways and saying, look, you ran for president and saying that you would reduce costs. We don't see costs being lowered. Mm-hmm. So we need to find some answers here. So we're going to look at our local elections, like mayor's races, governor races, and see if we can get some help, some real help for our average voters.
Was there a Mamdani factor into all of this?
I mean, there was a huge Mamdani factor into all of this. We saw it in the primary where we had a much higher turnout than usual. And what we saw, the Mamdani factor included new voters signing up to register to vote, 100,000 volunteers out canvassing, knocking on doors. So we saw a volunteer operation on the scale that I hadn't seen in New York since Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, but certainly not in a local election across the 5 boroughs.
Grace, you probably saw more even this year because there's nothing else no other race to take place. It's like a special election. There's 3 biggies on the East Coast, and after that, there's nothing. So people come from the Midwest, they come from wherever to come out, and they bust them in from everywhere, from the cities and the states across the country.
Well, let me talk about Curtis Sliwa for a second while we have you talking right now. Was he, in fact, the spoiler candidate?
By the way, we didn't talk about it before here, so I apologize.
Yeah.
Disclosure, I ran the IE for Curtis Lee. We've talked about it before.
Yes.
But I bet for viewers and so forth, I think it's important to say that. So I've got the pin, by the way. Just in case. But so I say absolutely not. I say when you look at the results tonight, it's going to be not just what the win is, whoever wins, it's the spin. Is there a Mamdani mandate? Is there a Cuomo coffin tonight? What's going to happen in his political career? What happens to city council? If Mamdani's got 50%, it's a very different mayor than he's 42. Mm-hmm. And then who's going to control the city council? The members? How many Republicans will it be? Will it be more than there's ever been?
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's so many different factors that go into a night like tonight. And people may have heard me say that Jersey City may go to a runoff because you need 50% or more. But in New York City, you just need a plurality.
Right.
So you don't have to hit that 50%, which is why this mandate is so important. And whether people are looking at, Tara, if Mamdani can crack that 50%, and then it would be a mandate for him.
Right. Well, one thing I want to go back to your first question about who was the spoiler tonight. Donald Trump was the spoiler. Mm-hmm. When Donald Trump endorsed Mario Cuomo, he helped to play. Oh my gosh, I'm saying Mario Cuomo here. Andrew Cuomo. He helped to play spoiler. But first of all, I think that Mamdani has energized Democrats, particularly younger Democrats, in a way, as Grace said, we have not seen. But the other thing that no one's talking about is the fact that people who voted for Trump are swinging to Mamdani. And that's the thing. The only other person that saw that was AOC. Andrea, I don't know why I'm messing up. I don't know why I'm having trouble with names tonight. But all the names. But that's another factor that I think will play a role, the fact that he was able to do that, especially with Asian American voters here in New York City. What we have continued to see is them trending Republican, and Mamdani is reversing that trend. And I think that is going to play a factor in how he governs with city council.
To your point, it's like Donald Trump getting Bernie voters. That happened along the way, too. I think when you mentioned spoiler and who was spoilers, I don't think there's any one person that's a spoiler. We have a system in place. And Grace does fantastic work with election reform and other things they do across the city. You really have to look at ranked choice voting. They have it in the primaries because the Democrats want it in the primaries to control things. Because they know when they get to the general, the Democratic enrollment is so significant here that they want it to be Republican and Democrat.
Yeah, I hear you. But the reason why I'm saying spoiler is because over the course of the campaign, you had Eric Adams and you had Andrew Cuomo consistently saying Curtis Sliwa drop out. You were going to be a spoiler. A vote for Curtis Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani.
So I always saw Sliwa not being a factor at all in this election. Mm-hmm. I think they were going to say that because they were really trying to figure out how to win. But to me, if you look at the Sliwa camp, the Adams camp, they were never going to kind of measure up to what Mamdani has put together, I don't think.
And frankly, one of the many challenges that Andrew Cuomo has faced in this campaign is about his vision for the future of New York. The campaign increasingly became about clearing the field of other candidates rather than going out and winning those voters to his side.
Dan, you cover campaigns. Grace used to cover them, and now she monitors and does a great job with that. The three of us run campaigns, have been in the box, as they call it, in the rooms. Have you ever seen a campaign like Cuomo that started off so lackadaisical in a primary with a Rose Garden strategy, and then after the primary was so decimated, he went to Southampton, not for the fundraisers that they all go to, he went to sit on the beach, he was away with his girlfriend, God bless, you get time off after an election. But they did not start campaigning until about 4 weeks ago. The first attack ad on Mamdani was by me and by our organization. We did a 30-second spot, anti-Mamdani for 15 seconds on broadcast on the station. That was never done until after I started doing it.
Well, it was also very interesting that people assumed that Curtis Lee would drop out, that those voters would go to Andrew Cuomo. Not necessarily the case, but to your point, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say it didn't matter. What Mamdani has done has been pretty epic. And the fact is that we use this word all the time in politics, but enthusiasm. He energized a party that, frankly, if you look nationally, the Democratic Party, despite people's dissatisfaction with Donald Trump, the Democratic Party is not really energizing its base. We're starting to see that turn a corner, but for a lot of people still feel like the party is rudderless, Democratic voters. Mamdani came in, and really, it's unfortunate that a lot of Democrats have not coalesced around him in the way that they should, because he really is modeling for the Democratic Party a way to actually move the party forward. Whether they want to fully embrace his like a lot of his issues or the way he's approaching these issues or his solutions is a different issue. But what he did in terms of coalition building and what he did in terms of energizing younger voters who have been also trending to Republicans is textbook great campaign.
He did something that was interesting, which was get a lot of the youth to come out and vote too. But I think what people are looking at tonight is who came out to vote and for who, and we'll get that later, right? In terms of the age, the demographics, the race, and how it's breakdown. Because Andrew Cuomo wanted the African-American vote, but in our polling it showed that was going towards Mamdani. Youth were going towards Mamdani. 50-plus were going towards Mamdani in that most recent Emerson Hill Pix 11 poll. Go ahead.
When you look at Mamdani, he is a fantastic candidate, bar none. But the Democratic Party was always ahead of Republicans organizing, going back to Governor Dean running for president and what Joe Trippi did on low-dollar donors and what they've done with Act Blue. That's been there since day one and is built up ahead of Republicans. Mamdani has done more of that in a much more energetic way, connected to voters that aren't there. Curtis is also connected to voters that Republicans don't usually go and campaign with. The question's going to be, going forward, when you cross the Hudson River and the rest of the country looks at Mamdani, what are they going to do? When he spends $700 million on free buses, and they go to Albany and say we need more money, we have to raise taxes, and goes to Washington. What's the governor
going to do?
And what's the president going to do?
But it's interesting to see because you all have called the race in New Jersey. I was just this week with some pollsters who were saying we expect the New Jersey race to be very, very close, and that if it was incredibly close, they would attribute that to the Mamdani effect in the suburbs, that more Republicans are turning out or Democrats voting for Republicans out of concern about Mamdani's rise in New York. So the fact that that race does not appear, I know there's still votes coming in, but it appears to be a very decisive Democratic win in New Jersey. So I think many folks will be reading the tea leaves to better understand the Mamdani effect beyond New York.
I know we got a lot.